Hey soccer fans, Nick here with the Feed the Fire podcast where we talk Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. And yes, I know in the last episode I left you hanging. Trust me, I didn't want to do it. But I also didn't want to have like a 1 hour episode that we're just slogging through during whatever commutes you're on during your Fridays and weekends and everything. Or if you're just relaxing, listening to the smooth sounds of my voice, talking all things American soccer. But no, we are going to jump right in to the major announcement that occurred today, November 13th, Thursday, 2025, the day that changed soccer in America, or some people would have you believe with as big of an announcement as this is. The Major League Soccer Board of Governors had their meetings over the last few days. They have voted on a calendar change, changing the season start and end date for MLS. Here is the official league announcement, and we're also going to talk about some of the reasons why and why not, and look at some other articles, some ESPN stuff, some other comments, and then there's also an Apple TV announcement, but we'll get to all that in a minute. Let's listen in as I read the announcement from the league about this calendar shift. Major League Soccer has announced a shift in its competition calendar, aligning the league's schedule with the world's top soccer leagues. Beginning in the summer of 2027, MLS will adopt a summer to spring season format, marking one of the most significant developments in the league's history. MLS is continuing to work with the MLS Players Association to finalize agreement on a transition plan. Oh, and by the way, I want to pause here. Tim Hotza over at Men in Red 97 brought up a really good point. So not only is MLS going to be working with the Players Association because of the shift in calendar, but also because the TV rights, or I should say the players were getting some money from the Apple deal from some of the TV rights, and now that that's changing, they're going to have to do a lot of negotiating with the MLSPA to make sure the players are getting the money that they were originally promised. Okay, back to that, and we'll touch on that a little later in the show. Back to the announcement about the calendar. In conjunction with this transition, MLS will introduce a new regular season format that blends elements of the global game with North American sports traditions. The league will also review potential adjustments to the Audi MLS Cup playoff format as part of an ongoing evaluation process, but has not finalized any changes. The calendar transition and the new regular season structure were approved during Thursday's MLS Board of Governors meeting in Palm Beach, Florida. The calendar shift is one of the most important decisions in our history, said MLS Commissioner Don Garber. Continuing his quote, aligning our schedule with the world's top leagues will strengthen our club's global competitiveness, create better opportunities in the transfer market, and ensure our Audi MLS Cup playoffs take center stage without interruption. It marks the start of a new era for our league and for soccer in North America. End quote. Couple things I want to address in this opening statement, this preamble, if you will, to this announcement. First of all, the opening line says, MLS shifted its competition calendar to align with the world's top soccer leagues. To me, this is all marketing and branding and puffery and word association. MLS, top soccer leagues. MLS, competition calendar, alignment. Like, they're trying almost too hard to say, hey, we are now in line with the big boys here. We're now in line with these top European leagues. So It makes me think of that line in Hamlet and Shakespeare. Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Methinks that the league builds itself up a little bit too much sometimes. All right, let's continue on with some of my other comments here. It says that this new calendar, this new season format will blend elements of the global game with North American sports traditions. I think those are two mutually exclusive things, right? You can have North American sports traditions regardless of when your season plays. You can I think one of the most unique ones is the playoffs. And they're already looking to change the structure of the playoffs, because if they're going to have a season that runs, say, summer to spring versus winterish spring to winter, fallish winter, as it is right now, if you're going to change your calendar, you can still have the playoffs, but they are probably going to have to change this whole first round best of 3 series. The fact that 9 of 15 teams in each conference get in the postseason, depending on your use of the word play-in game or postseason game or wildcard game there. so they are looking at that, but nothing has been finalized, and that was a discussion, and there's even discussions and rumors of discussions coming out about them wanting to change the actual league table. Instead of 15 teams in the East and 15 teams in the West, go to 5 divisions, go to 3 divisions, try and make a single table, try to have some more parity in results. Something that I've been calling for, but I don't know if going to a whole single table is going to be the answer. So we'll see. Those are all other things that have been reported and rumored to have been discussed during these Board of Governors meetings where no decision was made on it. But this calendar change is the big announcement. This has happened. Additionally, Garber says in his quote, this change in calendar creates better opportunities in the transfer market. Okay. I understand that it was very difficult aligning with international other league transfer windows, as well as the end of our season being midway through another season, or if you do want to transfer a player out, maybe make some money off of it during the primary transfer window, our summer transfer window, then you would lose them for the MLS season. You'd have to work out some loan back deal. So, yeah, I guess I think that's probably one of the most focal points and best arguments for this calendar shift. So I'll give him that. But then he says we need to ensure our playoffs take center stage without interruption. Well, Guy, you're creating half of these interruptions by dragging the season on so long. But what I really think he's talking about is the international calendar, FIFA's international windows, players missing out. But again, you can address that with your current by making a current calendar with a better schedule. I think rather than changing the whole thing. But again, this is two sides of the same coin here. So at the end of the day, it's not going to be a deciding factor. But it just sounds like Garber is shoehorning the reasons for changing the calendar, or I should say, shoehorning all these other issues that the league has. He's just saying, well, the new calendar is going to fix everything, when that's not necessarily the case. There were other fixes to other issues that did involve changing the calendar. Yeah, I think I finally clarified myself there at the end. Okay, the article now, the announcement continues on. The 2027-2028 season structure. The 2027-28 MLS regular season will begin mid to late July 2027 and conclude with the MLS Cup playoffs and MLS Cup in late May 2028. So the season will run from July to May. Like other major international leagues, MLS will observe a midwinter break from mid-December through early February, with no league matches scheduled in January. Before the calendar change, MLS will stage a transition season. Here's one of the main things to remember. There will be a transition season from February to May of 2027. So the 2027 season will kick off as usual, but instead of running through November, December, it will stop in May, as if the new calendar had kicked in and that was the end of the season. It'll be a 14-game regular season, playoff, and MLS Cup, and the results of that season, that shortened 14-game season, will determine qualifications for Open Cup, Canadian Championship, Leagues Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup. So it's kind of like people are already looking back to 2020 and COVID tournament, the MLS is back kind of mini tournament as a comp to this sort of season. Now, the calendar, like they said, it'll start in July, run to about mid-December, be on winter break until February, and then play into May with the playoffs as well. Now, here are the reasons the league has set out for the strategic benefits of the calendar shift. Number one, optimize global transfer market activity. Yes, the league is all about money. It's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but of course, we can't let money make all decisions, and every decision being a priority, having money as a priority might not be a good one, but in this case, that's what led the way: transfer market activity. Aligning with global schedules allows MLS clubs to participate more effectively in the world's major transfer windows, improving opportunities to acquire and sell top talent. Number 2 reason, maximize player signings, which kind of goes along with number 1. However, they categorize it as a separate good point, good benefit here. With the majority of global player transfers occurring in the summer, participation in the most active transfer window will now enhance, rather than disrupt, a team's ambitions for the season. With marquee players joining in the summer window, the new offseason, the calendar allows MLS teams to fully integrate summer signings before the regular season and cup competitions begin. Number 3, strategic benefit of the calendar shift. It will align with the FIFA calendar. Mindful of FIFA international match windows, the new calendar will significantly reduce conflicts between MLS league matches and national team call-ups for players, particularly during summer tournaments. Now, this tells me that MLS, number 1, wants to protect their players a little bit more, but 2, they're also anticipating an increase in the talent level of players in Major League Soccer, that you are going to have more and more players in MLS who also represent their national teams, and so they need to address that. Also, it could be a sign that they have gotten feedback from whoever, from players, agents, other clubs, confederations, national team confederations, who say that our players don't want to go to MLS because they may not get released for international breaks, or they're going to have to travel from the United States to wherever they're from and then play their games and then travel back, not be fully fit. It could be a huge inconvenience for them. And heck, we're even seeing that now. We're hearing about all the issues with Christian Pulisic and the USMNT in Milan and all these things. So it is an issue that has to be addressed. Whatever side of the answer or the solution or problem you fall on, it is something that has to be addressed. So if the league, in this case, seems to be making a proactive decision saying, hey, look, we know we're going to have more national team caliber players in our league, we need to make sure that they're accommodated. The 4th benefit, they say, is to elevate the playoffs. This one's got me eye rolling. It is number 4. It's down the list, but it's kind of got me eye rolling. Here's what they say. The MLS Cup playoffs and MLS Cup will be played in May, delivering ideal timing and weather for the pinnacle of the MLS season, uninterrupted by FIFA international match windows. This change would also provide premier placement on the sports calendar, ensuring maximum attention and visibility for the league's most important matches. Okay, again, they're saying that the schedule is dragged out so long, that they're playing in poor weather conditions. Well, number 1, the long schedule of the American soccer landscape, and I mean that to include U.S. Open Cup, Leagues Cup, MLS regular season, preseason, postseason, any international friendlies and any other friendlies, Canadian Championship, all these other things. The league's had a hand in doing it, so they need to recognize that first and foremost. But yes, it will supposedly help them get around these FIFA international match windows. The other thing is, do it like the Super Bowl. Play it on a neutral site. Go to California, Texas, Florida. Go to a nice neutral site with wonderful weather that is in November and December every year. That's another solution. I'm not advocating for it, but again, to me, it seems like the answer to every criticism and every perceived problem with MLS is, well, we'll just change the calendar. It'll fix everything. Like, no, there's other fixes you could have made. Now, I understand the counter argument to hosting it at a neutral site. One club. What's the incentive then to be the top seed? What's the incentive for fans? How it could create an uneven cheering section, I guess, if you will. It might be easier for fans of the Western Conference team to get to the California locale, or fans of the Eastern Conference team to get to a Florida locale. And so the teams need incentive as well. So I get the counter arguments for it, but again, that's just one solution, and I don't know how much that was discussed. But again, it won't fix the whole playoff system unless you did like a playoff bubble. We want to go back to more ideas from the COVID season. But it was something to consider. Premier placement on the sports calendar. That you are in May with your playoffs, and there's nothing else going on in American sports except for the MLS Cup playoffs. This is an interesting one, competing with other American sports for viewership. I think they're admitting, without admitting it, that casual people aren't tuning in to Major League Soccer games, especially if there's college football, if there's NFL, if there's any other professional American sport out there. You're not getting the casual fan. So now here's a way you're going to get a casual sports fan. It's literally the only game in town. I also saw another graphic, and I forget the exact numbers, but currently MLS is playing February to December. The new season has the MLS playing from July to May with the winter break. There's like 90% of MLS games are still being played when there's some sort of football or baseball or basketball or hockey going on as well. So there's very little opportunity for the MLS to not be competing with the other major American sports. But at least in this new calendar change, our playoffs are not. They will be the only game in town, so to say. Now, looking at those are their 4 big reasons that they outline for this. The article continues here. Behind the decision was a 2-year process that began in October 2023, incorporating feedback from owners, club execs, players, the MLS Players Association, partners, and fans. Research conducted throughout the process revealed strong support for the shift, including 92% of league soccer viewers, defined as those who have watched at least one professional club soccer match during the most recent season, supporting the calendar change. Fans cited several key benefits to the new schedule, including improved player performance, better alignment with international competitions, and a May postseason. Okay, I'm going to jump in here real quick. And so the minimum requirement as a fan to participate in this was watch one game. One professional club soccer match. Doesn't even say one MLS game. The only, you could be interviewing as part of this data set someone who just happened to flip on the Champions League final last year and now is giving an opinion on what MLS should do. So I really, just given this right here, there's a strong chance that that data is heavily biased towards going to a European style window. And did MLS do that on purpose? Did their executive or their survey company, whoever they use, do that on purpose? Depends on how thick your tinfoil hat is, I think. But to me, that's very, very suspect. Also, I think I saw some other stuff that said, of all these groups that were interviewed about the change, the fans were the most opposed to it or had the least amount of support for it, whichever way you look at that. So something else to keep in mind there. The article continues. MLS also conducted extensive weather and logistics analyses to ensure a high-quality fan experience. While the final schedule footprint is still being determined, the league intends to limit the number of home matches in northern markets during December and February. Although the start and end dates of the season will change, the vast majority of MLS matches will still be played within the same general time frame of today's schedule. Initial projections for that 27-28 season indicate 91% of matches will fall within the current MLS window. So they're saying that, look, whether we're going from February to December or July to May, I mean, there's a 91% overlap of matches played. Okay, I'll give them that. That's fine. But if you're just looking solely at that, that's a very surface level analysis. You've got to look at how that affects in with, say, CONCACAF Champions Cup, US Open Cup, Leagues Cup, the international window. Everything that you're saying is supposed to help. How does that change these games that are being played? Because now you got to remember, players who were called up for their national team weren't playing MLS games. Now they'll be playing MLS games and their international games. So it's actually kind of going against some of the schedule congestion and too many games and workload that some of these players had, and MLSPA and people around the world have been complaining about. So it could cut against you in that sense, Major League Soccer. But also as far as the extensive weather and logistics analyses, I'm trying to be objective here and say that it's a flip of the coin, right? At some part of the year, it's going to suck in Minnesota, Chicago, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, New York, Columbus, right? In the other part of the year, it's going to suck in Texas, Florida, California for the opposite weather effects. It's going to be, you're either going to be playing in your freezing temperatures part of the season or in extreme heat temperatures part of the season. As an athlete, I don't know what's worse. I know personally, I would much rather play in the heat. I do remember my high school club team. We started training early one year because our coach really wanted to make sure we were gelling as a team. And man, we started training in the snow, and I'm like, that's it, done. Don't ever want to do this again. I'd rather play in 100 degrees than 0 degrees any day of the week. But that's just me. I don't know what the preference is. I don't know what the science says. I don't know what the league says. Maybe they can get more sponsorship money when the weather is better, or maybe when they can get more sponsorship money when their playoffs aren't competing with other sports here. I think that's another big one that they didn't say. They made it an eyeball argument that more people are going to watch the playoffs because it's the only game. Yeah, more sponsors are going to pay for it because it's the only outlet to get their marketing and ads run. So yeah, there's a huge financial component there. Okay, so yeah, as far as the weather goes, you can run all sorts of analyses and logistical studies and everything, but it's half dozen of one, 6 of the other. I think if you want to be as objective as you can about it, like if you're going to be playing in Chicago or Vancouver or New York or Minnesota in February, March, early on in the season, you're still going to be playing in those cities in March, in October, November, right? The other thing too is that I think is really going to suck is we're already on break with this new calendar from mid-December. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. Yeah, from mid-December through about mid-February. So we're off the month of January, half of December, half of February. And then they're going to make sure that not to try to schedule northern games, right? Games in these northern cold weather cities during that December, February thing. So as a Chicago Fire fan, I'd consider us a cold weather winter city, right? And this could apply to Minnesota, to New York, Cincinnati, Columbus, absolutely the Canadian clubs, and maybe the Pacific Northwest to a certain extent. So if we don't get home games during these cold weather months, it's possible that as fans, we're not going to get a home game for at least 3 months during the course of the season. That's a 2-month of the winter break. Add the other month of December, the first half of December, the second half of February. And then how's that going to shake out? Are we going to even get games in November? Do they play Thanksgiving week? Are they going to want to play Thanksgiving weekend? When's the international break? Similarly, towards the end of February, when are they going to start picking up those games and in what cities? So we as Chicago fans or MLS cold weather fans might not have, in a worst case scenario, you're not going to get a home game for 1, 2, 3, 4 months during the course of the season, November through February, potentially. That's my speculation. It's not based on any analysis I've done, but if the league says we're taking this winter break, we're going to make sure we schedule games during the winter in warm weather cities. Well, there you go. Also, if I'm the warm weather cities, I'm like, I don't know, are we getting an advantage or a disadvantage by that? I haven't thought about that too much. All right, let's continue on as we wrap up this article here. It says MLS Next Pro has been part of the discussions over the last several months and will continue to have conversations with its owners to make a decision about the calendar. So this only affects Major League Soccer, not Next Pro. Additional details regarding the 2027 transition, the 2027-28 regular season, and new competition formats will be announced at a later date. Currently, the schedule spans from late February to early December of the same calendar year. Okay, now here's the feedback from people in the know, the people in U.S. soccer and Major League Soccer. Obviously, they're only going to say positive quotes. And by the way, there's a gentleman in my MLS Twitter group chat who covers the Vancouver Whitecaps. I don't know. I don't want to say his name for fear of anything getting out. But essentially, he was on the call when Garber made the announcements. Got to hear some of the questions asked. And I asked him. I said, "Hey, man, how unanimous was this support?" And he goes, "It was not unanimous." Garber was asked about how much support there was, and he sidestepped it, just saying, "Oh, this was the majority. This was the vote. This is what everybody wanted," kind of a thing, or the majority wanted. This did not reflect a unanimous vote or a supermajority or anything like that. There was opposition to it. I haven't dug a lot into that yet. I can tell you we're going to hear a quote from Greg Berhalter, which suggests that Chicago is in support of the change. Obviously, people at the MLS front office were in support of the change. New England Revolution already put out an announcement on their website in support of this. I read a FC Cincinnati reporter say that she had heard, not confirmed, that she had heard that Cincinnati was in favor of the schedule change. So, that's what I've heard so far. If you guys have heard things about different clubs, please let me know. You can find me on social media at Glasshouse Soccer, or you can email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com, and we can kind of keep this conversation going, right? But here are the quotes. Here are the positive reactions. Obviously, the league's not going to put the negative ones. Now, this quote is from Mauricio Pochettino, U.S. men's national team head coach. "For sure, this is a great step forward for MLS to be on par with the top leagues in the world. Having managed club teams and now the U.S. national team, the ability to align with the international calendar will have a huge positive impact for the players, coaches, and clubs. This also extends beyond the senior national teams. It will allow us to have access to the youth national team players during critical periods of international competition, further advancing their development." End quote, Mauricio Pochettino. Berhalter's quote here, Fire fans. "The beauty of MLS is how it has evolved over the years, and another step in that evolution is aligning with the top leagues in the world. Moving to an international calendar helps position MLS on par with the best." So, just in the first two quotes, we've seen MLS is trying to be on par with the best leagues in the world. So that's how MLS sees either themselves now, that they are one of the best leagues for whatever metrics and reasons you think, or that in order to be a top 10 or maybe one day a top 5 soccer league in the world, this is the move we have to make. Now we get to hear from Clint Dempsey. "Having MLS on the same timetable of the rest of the world is great. Whether you're in MLS Europe or anywhere else, being aligned means players are sharper when they get called into camp, and it's easier for everyone, players, coaches, and fans, to follow the game year-round." So Dempsey's in favor of it. Former USMNT Premier League MLS great Clint Dempsey is in favor of the change. Will Kuntz, now general manager of the Galaxy, says, "Moving to the international calendar is going to be a massive game changer, especially for roster building. It finally allows us to operate in sync with the global transfer market. We'll be able to sign players when the biggest talent movements happen in the summer instead of midseason when integration is difficult." So now here's my challenge to MLS and what I expect to happen now. You have moved this calendar. You have shaken the foundations of Major League Soccer by shifting the calendar of competition. And your number one reason for doing it, transfer market optimization. Your number two reason for doing it, maximizing player signings. You have Dempsey, Kuntz, Berhalter, as well as Pochettino, all commenting that is a great reason to do this. Now MLS has to loosen the roster restrictions. Every reason you've given for making this major change is to improve the signings, the incoming and outgoing transfers of talent in Major League Soccer. If you're going to do it under old salary cap rules, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So that to me is the next domino that will fall here. And of course, they've got to continue to have those conversations with Major League Soccer's Player Association because, like I mentioned before, like Tim Hotze first put out online as a discussion point, that the players were getting part of the TV money. Apple is now moving MLS off of a subscription season pass to available with any Apple TV subscription or with the general Apple TV subscription. So that's a lot of money lost, money that in part was going to the players. How are they going to make that up? So again, the reasoning of we're making the shift for scheduling, and also we need to come up with some more money for players. I think they are going in these next 2 years before this comes out to really loosen up the purse strings or allow clubs to spend on player salaries. I think that's the way it's going to go. Speaking of that MLS Apple issue, I got this email from the Chicago Fire today. It says, because you're a Chicago Fire full season ticket member, we're letting you know that starting in 2026, all MLS broadcasts and exclusive programming will be part of an Apple TV subscription at no additional cost. The standalone MLS Season Pass service will no longer be offered as a separate subscription. Your 2026 club full season ticket membership will entitle you to an Apple TV subscription in 2026, one per account. Your Apple TV subscription will provide access to every MLS match starting next season, as well as hundreds of exclusive Apple original shows and movies, weekly MLB games with Friday Night Baseball, and all Formula One races starting in 2026 for U.S. viewers. So people were quick to point out that what MLS is doing with Apple now is similar to the F1 racing series and deal. No action is required from you at this time. You'll receive more info during the off-season about accessing Apple TV subscription. So I told my wife, hey, honey, guess what? Now we get free Apple TV with the season ticket membership. And she's like, but I already have my account. How's that going to work? I'm like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. So that is another change and another perk. I don't know that has to do with all of this. One other thing that has come out of all this discussion, as I first saw by Tom Bogert out on Twitter, he said MLS plans to extend the transfer window a bit beyond when major European windows close after the schedule flips in the summer of 2027. So we're going to get a little bit of an extended window to maximize all the reasons we've talked about changing the schedule. MLS has also got the green light from FIFA and CONCACAF to include the 3 Canadian MLS teams as domestic. So all 30 MLS clubs will be aligned. To me, that just makes organizational sense. If it simplifies things, especially in this context, so many different rules already in Major League Soccer and International Soccer and FIFA, do it. So Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal are all going to be considered domestic teams for all intents and purposes, I guess. So you're not going to have wacky roster rules between if you're a Canadian player playing in Toronto versus a Canadian player playing in LA or something like that. So it's funny, I started to see some other discussion that with this calendar flip and with alleged realignment also being discussed of teams and tables and this and that, people are like, hey, maybe Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal are all just going to say, goodbye MLS, we are going to Canadian Premier League and we'll just headline that league. I don't think that'll happen. Clearly they're making a lot more money in Major League Soccer. Their players have a lot more exposure and opportunity in Major League Soccer. So I don't see that happening, but it is kind of a funny thought that people are putting that out there. All right, I won't go through the entire ESPN articles. There were a couple out there written by Jeff Carlisle and Lizzie Bescherano. I usually don't like going to ESPN for a lot of soccer, but Jeff Carlisle is one of the best when it comes to writing about soccer, especially in the United States. Lizzie Bescherano covered MLS, I think, as an independent or for DC United for a long time. So these are two people who I am very confident in my soccer coverage, even though it's coming on ESPN. So why don't we go through just a few quotes that they have put out there. And why not start with Jorge Mas of Inter Miami? Probably one of the driving factors behind this change. Jorge Mas says, if we're able to change the calendar, I think it will have an advantage of being able to participate much more aggressively in the transfer windows, both incoming and outgoing. So there it is. To put a little context behind it, this year, MLS teams spent approximately $336 million on player acquisitions. We had some league records for incoming transfers. They were broken 3 times in the last year. Cincinnati paying $16 million for Kevin Danke, Atlanta United signing Emmanuel Loth for $22 million, and then LAFC spending $26.5 million for Son Heung-min. The total spend represents a 75% increase from the prior year. So spending is going up, and this is only another way to take advantage of that. Here is now a quote from one MLS Chief Soccer Officer, or CSO. It's an anonymous CSO here. The amount of money spent in the summer market, I think, is 12 or 13 times what it is in January. We want to be able to participate in that in a much easier way that's not disrupting the middle of your season. If we continue not to understand that we need to develop first before we sell, the calendar switch will not be a big advantage. So I like how he is quoted in saying that too. Yeah, you want to be a part of the buy sell market when it's there, right? You don't want to be buying Christmas gifts in July. You want to be doing it in November, December, when all the sales are happening, when everyone's out there making deals. But just that alone isn't going to change the type of business that MLS does from a dollars and cents perspective or a volume perspective. You need to develop better players. You're going to have more people interested in MLS. But again, these are multi-million-dollar investments these foreign clubs will be making should they decide to sign any sort of MLS players or purchase the rights to any MLS players. They're going to do their homework. And so unless you actually have a good product to sell, it's not going to make a difference if you do it in January or July. Here's a quote from another MLS CSO. And this is in a sense of how MLS is developing and evolving. This CSO says, I think MLS must adapt a fall-spring calendar. Should that be adopt? I don't know if that was a typo or just he misspoke. Anyway, I think MLS must adapt a fall-spring calendar. It must to survive and become MLS 3.0. Otherwise, it will go back to old MLS after Messi leaves. I mean, that's been a criticism regardless of any of this, that as soon as Messi leaves, attention's going to leave, and that MLS is going to have to rely on these big name stars coming in. So, but how does that change? That's what I want to know. How does this calendar change affect MLS's need for stars like Messi, like Son, guys like that, like getting these fringe stars and turning them into stars like a Dreyer, like a Bouanga, like an Almiron, for that big transfer fee to Newcastle back then. How is a schedule change going to change MLS from a fundamental business perspective that they don't need to rely on these stars? That I haven't seen yet. Hopefully, like I said, just the fact that they are on a better calendar, that more people are going to be tuned into their playoffs, assuming, and that they're going to be able to participate in the global market on a higher and better level, that is all going to start to change things a little bit. But here's what I think. This is my speculation now. Is that MLS said, who cares? Like 90% of our games are still in the same time frame as the old schedule. We're still always going to be competing with the major American sports for the casual sports fan. Are the diehard NFL fans ever going to say, hey, we're going to go to a few MLS games this year? Maybe not. Are the baseball season ticket holders, who go to 81 games at home or, 40 games even, 20 to 40 MLB games this season, are they going to say, yeah, let's throw in a few MLS games? I don't know. Probably not. So they're looking for a global audience. And I think that was first signaled when they signed the Apple deal, when they were able to put all their games in one streaming platform around the world. They are looking for a global audience. I mean, heck, look at the Premier League. Like they love the Asian market. They love the American market. Like they are looking outside of the UK and outside of Europe to grow their brand. Maybe MLS and Apple have come to the conclusion we're almost at the peak of US viewership. We need to have a little bit more of an international focus, and this is going to help it, this calendar shift. Let's see what other quotes we can pull out. Oh, Nelson Rodriguez. We couldn't get an MLS decision without a Nelson Rodriguez quote here. Executive Vice President of Sporting and Competition, MLS. He says, it's not our intention to play on FIFA dates. I want to recognize that there will be a double date, a FIFA double date, September, October. Doesn't that sound nice, Nelson? A double date, a FIFA double date. Just cozy up in the drive-thru, maybe go for a milkshake, hold hands on a FIFA double date. What is this guy talking about? Anyway, his quote continues, and so we will consider playing only on that double date, but that hasn't been decided or finalized yet. Okay, I think he means there's going to be 2 games in September, 2 games in October, as opposed to other international windows where it's just a 2-game, 2-week kind of a window, and then you've got a few months between them. But he says every year always has some vagaries to it, shifting FIFA windows and the dates of FIFA windows, stadium availability, and the like. So yeah, that was another one. Another reason, again, for the move is to avoid conflict with the FIFA international schedule. Another chief soccer officer said that the only way you cannot play during a FIFA tournament is to have a fall to spring calendar. Another CSO talks about going up against other American sports. Quote, I think playoffs going up against the end of the NBA and beginning of baseball is way better than going up against NFL and college football. Ooh, take that. Take that, NBA and MLB. Quote, the playoffs should be our best product, our product that we can generate the most revenue with, and that currently doesn't exist. And just general respect globally that we're respecting the old guard and how things should work. Okay, I hate that. I hate that. I understand the first part of that quote. You want to, if you're going to have your season align with another American sport, do it against the NBA and baseball. Now, I'm not the typical sports viewer. I don't think I've watched a complete NBA game in years. And similarly, I just kind of follow baseball on the radio because being in the Chicago market, you turn on any Chicago sports radio station, it's either Bears or Cubs and maybe a little bit of White Sox. That's about it. You'll get your Bulls talk. You'll occasionally get your Fire and Stars talk. Your Sky talk. You'll get your Blackhawks talk, of course, especially with Connor Bedard, and they're off to a pretty good start this season. But you're going to get Bears. You're going to get Cubs and Sox, and that's how it is in Chicago sports radio. So I can keep up with my baseball that way, but I'm not tuning in to 3-hour-long baseball games anymore, right? So I get all that, but the second half of that quote. General respect globally, that we're respecting the old guard and how things should work. It's your league, man. You get to decide how things should work. And this is where I kind of laugh because they're like, oh, we're going to pay, we're going to combine the traditions of American sports with kind of these traditional ways of doing things. I'm like, dude, we should not be deciding what's best for MLS based on what's best for the Premier League or how the Premier League's done it for the last 100 years, or how the Bundesliga has done it for the last however many years, or what are they doing over in La Liga and Serie A that we can just copy because it's something cool that the Italians and the Spanish are doing that we want to do because it's going to have the same impact for us. I think that's the dumbest thing. That's like in when you go into your corporate workplace as a new employee and you're like, hey, so why do we do it like that? And someone says, well, that's just the way we've always done it. Well, that's just the way soccer's always been. It's always been a kind of a spring through winter season, right? That's just how it always. I think that's dumb. All right, we're coming up on 45 minutes here, so let's try and get a few other quotes in. Who another CSO says regarding the weather. There's going to be a little bit of an issue in the markets that have different climate conditions. Obviously, like Montreal, Toronto, New England, Chicago are going to be different places to play in January, so you can adjust the schedule. I think the climate would be the challenge in our league. Another CSO says the switch is better for southern teams and bad for northern teams in terms of competitive balance. Quote, in my eyes, it will come down to pretty much a shift of our sports to southerly regions. I mean, the clubs in the South will be clearly advantaged as they do not need to play in hot summers anymore and also don't have to invest in costly infrastructure like pitch heating. Okay, so yeah, someone does think that this is an advantage for teams in the South because in the winter, they get the home games and they get to play in good temperatures, and then in the summer, they get to go north and play in the good temperatures again. So There's a lot of great quotes. There is a lot of great content out there by probably anyone who covers soccer at all in the United States. Go absorb it all. Try not to be too close-minded on it because at the end of the day, this is happening, folks. This is happening. MLS is shifting to a European style calendar where the season will be played from May. Why can't I even remember it? I'm talking about it way too much. It'll be played from July to May with a winter break, and then the summer off-season transfer window aligning with the other traditional leagues around the world. So it's happening. We can sit here and pot all we want to. Personally, I think I'm kind of a neutral on this one. I see all the positive arguments. However, I'm kind of opposed to it because I think the MLS, if I had to come down on one side of the fence, I'd be opposed to it because I think the MLS is using this calendar shift as a panacea. I think that they are completely glossing over any of the negatives and criticisms of it. Look, every league around the world and across any sport has criticisms of how it's managed, how its calendar is, how it's broadcast, all those sorts of things. You know, it might not be as vocal in the NBA or NHL when you're playing in indoor arenas, but there's still concerns about workload. It might not be as pronounced in the NFL when you only have 16 regular season games. Oh wait, now that's 17, but we had to reduce a preseason game for it. Anyway, and we play the Super Bowl in really nice warm weather every time. So maybe it's not as big of a factor for the NFL. MLB, Major League Baseball, I mean, they're playing 162 games. I think a lot of people would be okay if they changed their calendar and shortened that up. So this is kind of a unique thing for Major League Soccer and soccer in the United States. But I would fall against it. You know, if it came down to my one vote, I would vote against it. One, I think the MLS is treating it as a cure-all. Two, if you really are having this much debate about it, keep the status quo. See if you can't tweak things here or there. Three, gosh, I really haven't heard any negative commentary out there. So I know it's there. And if the league is so worried about that, about covering that up or not promoting it, this anti-calendar shift position, it makes me wonder. Why. All right. We have talked enough. Again, this was the second part. I did a back-to-back recording. We talked about Chicago Fire signings and some MLS non-calendar shift news in a prior episode. We've got back-to-back episodes being released for you. Please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the show, grow the conversation, especially now around soccer in America and Major League Soccer. And as always, let's go Fire.